World Cup off day is today. This is the first off day. What has it been, like 2.5 weeks? We've had World Cup games straight.
Yeah.
And this is the first day. It feels strange to not have a game. Tomorrow, though, round of 16 kicks up. Things are about to get serious. Brazil, Chile at noon Eastern, round of 16. Uruguay, Colombia, 4 Eastern, round of 16. That game's going to be at the Maracanã. We have some delicious matchups going through. And I know a lot of European teams are done, Tim, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the bracket, we're looking at maybe a France-Germany quarterfinal. We're maybe looking at a Argentina-USA quarterfinal. There's some great possibilities here. The guy sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, is Chile not the worst matchup for Brazil?
It's not a good one.
In a round of 16 at home, feeling the pressure, perhaps.
You know what is the worst matchup for Brazil at home right now? Any other South American team.
Right.
Because they're just as insane and hungry as they are, and they just don't get the recognition. The man who will be calling one of the 2 round of 16 games tomorrow, he's going to be at the Maracanã for 2 South American nations.
Nice.
That is on my bucket list. Peter Drury joining us. Peter, how you doing today, sir?
Hi, guys. How are you?
We're good. I feel a little lonely today. First day in 2.5 weeks, no games, so I need a hug. But having you on today is good enough.
Yeah, I feel the same. We're bereft here. We're bereft. I'm actually in my hotel room in Rio. This is how sad I am. Having done a morning's work on my match tomorrow, I'm now watching Britain's Andy Murray playing at Wimbledon on the television.
What is the score? Can you give us an update?
Yeah, he's won the first set, our man, and he's 2-1 up in the second set. He's broken.
The best part is we're watching World League Volleyball between Finland and Canada. Canada currently trailing 10-9 opening set.
Oh, that's not meant to happen, is it?
No.
Oh,
we got to crush those Finns.
Oh, there's going to be a volleyball summit in this country, Peter. There's going to be people rioting.
I didn't know Finland was so good at volleyball.
We're okay. We're okay.
They got some great finish.
All right, let's move on here before Peter hangs up. Peter, before we talk about tomorrow and some of the things you've seen, I didn't know this. My apologies for this. You have the assignment to call the World Cup final on Sunday, July 13th, correct?
I do.
Okay, again, pardon my ignorance, because we hear you guys every 2 years calling these tournaments, but the one thing I don't know is how far in advance you know the assignment and who in the end is making the decision. Walk us through how that works, because we just see you call a great game, and we don't know the backstory and how it really happens.
Well, do you know what? I don't really know the answer to that. I know that I knew around about Christmas time that I was going to do the World Cup final this year, and it's the first time I have. It's the 5th World Cup I've worked for, but it's the first time I've done the World Cup for this company that I've worked for. So the previous 4 World Cups I did for one of the UK domestic channels, and you know, it's men in shirts and ties in dark rooms who sit around and make these decisions.
So it sounds like FIFA.
but it's not FIFA.
Yeah.
Exactly. So listen, if your name comes out of the raffle, then obviously you're very happy. And so it's going to be a great privilege to call that game.
It's just crazy for us from the outside looking in, because we hear these foreign voices calling games, and we don't know the inner workings, but we fall in love with the Martin Tylers, the Peter Drurys, and we hear these voices from afar, and you never really get to touch them or understand how it comes about. But I'm sure you had no idea that millions in Canada are watching you all the time.
Well, to be absolutely honest, I suppose there is that point of separation as you sit down and work on the games in the English Premier League and obviously at a World Cup like this. But I've enjoyed in the years I've been doing it actually the contact that I have made, and I'm not just saying it because I'm on your radio station now, but actually I have a particular fondness for Canada. I have relations who live there, and actually my relationship with your radio station and your television network is something that I really, really cherish, actually. I probably interact with you guys, the Canadians, as much as any of the audiences in sort of, all over Africa and Asia and so on. So, it does occur to me sometimes, actually, that, goodness me, there's people across Canada which, is a massive, massive country tuning in to watch the game of soccer, and I'd better shout the right names really for you.
But it is a small, like, I know you live in that kind of little bubble in terms of your travel and the number of games you call during a tournament like this, but it is a small world when someone like me on a couch in Toronto is saying, what a great line. Do you know the way to San Jose following Costa Rica? Like, it is an incredible kind of moment when you are in it and you are resonating to so many people globally. It must be humbling.
Well, it is, yes. I mean, it's also, I must say, listen, we all have an ego, and you try to keep it under control. But there's something very flattering about having a line that you've used quoted back to you. You know, that's very kind of you to do it. But if you think about it too much, I guess it could be overawing slightly, because you know the numbers of people out there are so huge that if you think about the numbers, you'd probably just want to curl up in a ball and hide away. So it's best just. I always remember this from my very early years in sort of local radio in England. People always said, always assume, just think of someone and talk to them.
Yeah.
And that way you're just having a conversation. Well, you guys must know that. You present a radio station every day, a radio program every day, for heaven's sake. You know, you must feel the same way. Your show is based on a conversation. You're having a conversation with your listeners and each other. And really, whilst calling a football match is slightly different from that, because your show is by definition a conversation. A commentary on a football match isn't quite like that. But if you have in mind what you're trying to get over to an individual, then hopefully it would work for a mass audience too.
Peter Drury joining us here on Tim and Sid. He'll call Colombia, Uruguay tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Has the favorite in your mind changed since the start of the tournament?
Well, it was interesting. I obviously caught the end of your conversation just before I came on about the South Americans, and the way it's shaped up. I do think we appear to be heading towards, listen, I could be made a fool of here, but something fairly major in South American terms. And before this tournament, when people say who's going to win it, I've said Argentina. And I stand by that, because I don't think they've played especially well yet, apart from obviously the little genius who scores all their goals. And yet they're through really without breaking sweat. And they have one of the 3 all-South American games, or at least that's the way it was headed until Switzerland surprised Ecuador and went through. So they've avoided the South Americans. Brazil play Chile, as you say. Colombia play Uruguay, which means we're guaranteed progress from that section of the draw from a South American team. I see Argentina coming through the other side. But there are so many hurdles in their way that it's hard to say that with any confidence. And I don't know, you must tell me this. As Canadians, I need to improve my knowledge. As Canadians, are you rooting for the USA, or do you feel rivalrous about them and not sure that you want them to progress?
I got to say,
on them?
Personally, Peter, I'm a little indifferent, but the one thing I'm fascinated of, and I don't know if the numbers got back to you, some of the ratings they're seeing in the States, specifically the USA-Portugal game in prime time, was the most watched, when you combine it with live streaming, was the most watched soccer game in the country's history. There is something kind of happening here, and it's, from a TV standpoint, that's where I'm more fascinated. In terms of the team itself, I mean, I like Clint Dempsey. I like some guys in that team. But we're
not Brazil, Argentina, where it's just hated rivals.
Correct.
There's kind of an understanding between Canada and the United States when it comes to soccer or football.
Yeah, Canada can't qualify, so we're good.
So we just watch.
Yeah. Well, maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day. Hopefully, I'll be on this earth to see it. Peter Drury, the voice of the World Cup final on Sunday, July 13th. His assignment tomorrow is the round of 16 game at the Maracanã in Rio between Colombia and Uruguay. I'm just looking at the schedule, Peter, and what you might actually kind of be walking into tomorrow. Heaven forbid, I'm just going to throw the scenario on the table. Brazil gets eliminated tomorrow. You're in Rio. You are in Rio, sir. You might be in the middle of the biggest wake in the history of human sports.
I think you're right. It's funny, the tournament clearly globally has been a very big success so far. Lots and lots of goals, lots of happiness, lots of good images all over the world. Happily, not too much political unrest in Brazil around it. There have been a few protests, but not as bad as feared. My worry would be if Brazil went out that it could, I hope it doesn't, but it could change the mood of the World Cup in the sense that the Brazilian people right here, right now, who are buying into it and smiling around it and dancing around it and producing all these beautiful images, suddenly might think, do you know what, are we interested anymore? Perhaps we are more interested in the millions of pounds that we wish were being, or dollars or whatever they spend, wish were being invested in hospitals and schools instead of football stadia and hosting the world, you know. I just hope that if Brazil do go out tomorrow, and as you rightly said just before I came on, that Chile game is no easy game. I just hope that the country can be generous-spirited enough to retain its enthusiasm for the tournament as a whole.
It'll be fascinating to watch, especially given the way Chile play, because they can score on anybody. Yeah. But I want to get to the game that you're calling, and I wonder if, by chance, Uruguay has a chance without Suarez in the lineup.
Well, yes. I mean, Uruguay does have a chance, but I'm only repeating back to you what you and everybody knows. He is their star player. He is their star player, bar none. His impact and influence on that side exceeds anything anyone else could achieve. And so they cannot be as good without him. Those are the simple, plain facts. But having said that, they do have a really good miserly defense. You know, Godin at the back is a good centre-half. They've got an excellent goalkeeper in Muslera. They do have a centre-forward in Edinson Cavani who is capable of scoring goals. What they will lack is the X factor. What they will be inspired by, and you guys mentioned it, is being in the Maracanã. You know, for anyone in world football, that is special. For a South American team, it's even more special. And for Uruguay, who won the World Cup against all the odds there in 1950 and have this extraordinary piece of history, this incredible backstory going back to the Maracanã 64 years on for a World Cup tie, you know, that ought to be a source of inspiration for them. And so, bearing all those things in mind, you know, the loss of Suarez, perhaps they would be able to compensate for. But, by the way, Colombia aren't bad either.
No, they're pretty good.
And Colombia would also say that, of course, they're going into this tournament or went into this tournament without their star man, Falcao. And they've coped without him. So there's a bit of sort of quid pro quo there.
Peter, I'm going to set the over-under at 3.5 for your Uruguay game tomorrow. On your end, how many biting puns will you make? I've got a very simple response to that. You started this conversation by reminding me what a privilege it's going to be for me to call the World Cup final. I think the first biting pun I come out with could deny me that privilege because the bosses will be listening. See, I'm going the other way, Peter. I'm saying 8 would solidify the next 3 World Cup finals for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think I'll just have to be very careful with any dental references.
Dental references.
Either way, enjoy the call. Enjoy calling the final. Hopefully we get to talk to you before then, but if we don't, have a great call along the way, and we really appreciate you taking the time and joining us here in Canada.
It's always great fun to talk to you guys, and I hope we do talk again in the next couple of weeks. Nice to speak with you.
Thanks, Peter. There's Peter Drury, who was about to call, as Sid mentioned. I think if you're just even a periphery soccer fan, like even I, as kind of the outside looking in.
But you always draw in every 2 years, though.
Yeah.
You're not that periphery. You're in.
But I don't think I'm in. There's no flag on my car.